Are you there, Carol? If anybody can hear me, let me know. I'm trying a couple different things out, and I don't exactly know what I'm doing. I'm going to be honest here. You guys able to hear me? Hello, Amanda. Can you hear me? I'm just trying to figure out if I did this right or not. Perfect. Awesome. All right. So we'll give everybody a few minutes to hop on. I know Carol has joined me before. I see some different names. For those of you who are already on, have you guys joined me before, or is this your first time doing something like this with me? Oh, I see. Hi, Tanya. I hope you guys are doing good. Kayla. All right, Kayla. Well, here in a moment, I will go over my dog over here, kind of some of the ground rules, and from there, uh, hopefully have fun over the next hour. So, basically, what I do here is I give you guys the opportunity to ask me questions. So as long as it is spiritually related, there's a lot of different areas of interest or topics. And so if it's something that I don't know a lot about, I try to be honest about it. I'm not going to feed you a plate of crap. So um, for those of you who have joined me before, if you guys have questions from anything that we talked about before or just stuff that you've come about, I know spiritually and astrology speaking, there is a lot of stuff that's going on right now. And it seems to me like I look at myself and the people closest to me, but then I look at the trend that I see with everybody kind of going around. And so I know a lot of people are um, really getting pushed their limits here. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and start throwing them down in the comment section or in the little chat bar, and we will just kind of start going to town. Everybody's all trying to think at once. Well, one of the questions that somebody had messaged me earlier was really trying to figure out the difference between a psychic and a medium because um, this individual felt that they were obviously intuitive, but they didn't think that they could be psychic. And the combination where I think a lot of people get confused is um, with nature, animals, we always call it instinct. And then with people, we call the same ability intuition. And for whatever reason, people love to question intuition, but they don't question nature or instinct. So, um, what is my favorite stone and why? Well, Megan, that's a loaded question because I have several. If I was to pick one, I always default back to blue kyanite. Now, it's one of those that um, after I had a sinus surgery, I was kind of at wit's end going through my own spiritual awakening, trying to figure out um, other things that would actually help me because I was no longer having luck with the antibiotics. I wasn't having luck with other things. And that's when I started using more holistic approach. And this blue kyanite kept circling back to me. And then eventually it was weird because I almost started dreaming of this like pendant. And one day I was out kind of Christmas shopping, and Spirit kind of led me into this shop where there was this artist who happened to make copper jewelry in Lincoln who had blue kyanite pieces with him. And that was one where I wore for a few months. And I couldn't help but to notice how. It was clearly doing something. And that's when I started learning more about the chakra system. And so for me, it's personal. However, at the same time, I was also strengthening my communication with spirit guides, which is one of the biggest properties of kyanite in general is spiritual communication. And so all of that was like totally getting ramped up. And then I don't know, for me, it's just really cool, but it's an awesome stone. And if people don't have it, I think you need to have it to your collection there. Um, Jackie, best crystals for starting a family and fertility. So, um, if we go really, really, really basic here, I'm going to talk about you guys are going to hear me talk a lot about the chakra system, because for me, the more that I understood and as I started to understand things on my own journey, everything started to come back to the chakra and different emotion tied to different chakra. And for me, it's how things really made sense. And because I was able to kind of turn my own life around with it, I see other people use it to their advantage as well. So that's kind of one of my methods for teaching. But if we're going to go talk about fertility complications, that's going to be in the sacral chakra, which is your reproductive system. So if you don't have anything and you want one, I would tell you to go for carnelian. Carnelian is going to it's one of those where your creative energy is going to come from the sacral. So whether you're talking like literal human creation or artistic creative energy, I mean, I don't sit here having a uterus, but I'm extremely creative. And so anytime I would have like a creative blockage or artist block, for example, I would get carnelian. Women that are wanting to kind of get that sacral in check so that they can get pregnant, carnelian is the first one I'm going to recommend. If people have had a past of like fertility complications, then I would, there's another one called banded carnelian, which has like white stripes. It's a different type of agate. Those two are my favorite. If you are going through like fertility treatments, in vitro, things like that, there is a fossil that is called Turritella agate, which when it was made, it was actually misidentified, but it's not really an agate, but they kept its name. So there's one more, orange calcite. So those are the main ones. There's a lot of women who, this is something where you could put in a pouch, wear around your waist. You could put it in your pocket, put it under the mattress, between the box spring and the mattress. In the bedroom, there's a lot of different ways that you can utilize them, but all of those are relatively inexpensive. And so, like I said at the beginning, if you don't have anything for the sacral, I would totally go for the carnelian. I don't actually recommend diving into too many different crystals at once, because what happens is you go or you're shopping and visually everything's like, oh, it's candy. And then you've got 15 crystals that you're throwing in, and you might love the way they're making you feel, but you don't have a freaking clue which one is doing what, or if one's a good fit for you, or if one's really just a good fit because somebody else said it was. So I like to take it slow, try one or two at a time, and then actually see if you can, after a week or so, see how they make you physically feel. Let's see, where was I? All right, Amanda, when you pass, they say that your loved ones meet you, human loved ones, and the soul tribe. So what's interesting, if you were to meet someone on a soul level, they are not going to look like your mom, your dad, your grandfather. They might have a familiar feeling. They might have a presence to them that is very identifiable to you. However, this skin suit that we get to be in is literally just kind of like our vessel to be here. And so when we circle back around, what I've actually noticed is even in this lifetime, their energy tends to come back, but on a spiritual level, at like a different dimension, we're still tied to them. It's really kind of fascinating, but I totally believe. I just talked to a gentleman yesterday where there was a gentleman, I think 20s, in a motorcycle accident, who was literally given a 1% chance of survival, and everybody thought that this kid was a goner. And there's belief that this estranged relationship that he had with one of his parents, actually somehow he had lost one of his parents, and they really believed that this person came through, somehow made things right, and gave him a sense to fight for life where they didn't think he necessarily would have before. So I thought that was actually really kind of cool. It's interesting because I lost my cousin on a motorcycle accident, and he has come through to me like on a dream state. And what I see are more of like images that would represent memories in my lifetime. I think that's probably the best way to explain it. It's not, I don't picture necessarily like a family lineup, just because the way I view things is being recycled. But on a spiritual plane, it's like once you go back to light, literally, you become light. And so there's going to be that familiar sense of home. Obviously, your mother is going to feel a certain way, but um, very much so, I would tell you, they're waiting on the other side. I've had a few experiences myself where um, it really made me change the way I perceive a lot of the afterlife. So some of that I think is actually pretty cool. Well, thank you, Jackie. uh, Brian, artistic creation, doesn't that come to the throat? There's various ways of creation. So if you're going to be a singer, for example, that's going to be the throat. Um, a lot of gifts are going to be kind of multi chakra. So for me, empathy comes from the heart. However, there are also books. My favorite book is going to say that it comes from the sacral. So you have to figure out what your method of truth is and roll with that. Tanya, recommendation or advice on the new moon? Her, it's a powerful time. So what's actually really interesting is kind of what I started talking about earlier. I don't know if you were actually on yet. There is so much of what I'm kind of labeling as like a cleansing sweep, where here in a couple of months, there's going to be like a lunar eclipse period, like what they call like a window. And there's such a transformation. And all of these individuals who are going through the spiritual journey, the spiritual awakening right now are getting pushed to kind of level themselves up, or in order to really grow, you have to let go of something. And so energetically speaking, we are always full. We can't always be adding, always be adding, always be adding without at some point shedding a skin, letting go of, we can't always be making new friends without letting go of old ones, for example. And so what people are perceiving as heavy is literally um, people's worlds are getting rocked right now, and it's unfortunate, but every person that I have worked with that's in this situation, they are really sitting there kind of tiptoeing, okay, if I don't want to live like this, I don't want to be depressed, I don't want to be anxious, if I'm going to go through an awakening to basically get to know myself inside and out, to really find out why I came to earth, why I'm here, what's my purpose, to then start living your life in that purpose. However, most of the time, it's like there are people who can take this kind of throughout their entire life. But for whatever reason, once people start to go through this spiritual awakening, it's like everything happens super fast. Picture like karmic debts getting cleared out at an accelerated pace. And so as I'm learning more about astrology, it's kind of like as these things loop around, depending where you plop in, you might get thrown around. And so there's a lot of people, the highly spiritual people, are really kind of just like, holy cow. But on the positive side of that, a huge opportunity for growth, huge opportunities for growth. Just setting yourself free. There's a paradigm, basically. And so as people are learning to think for themselves, then they can kind of present themselves in a similar way. But it's a confusing time, but I just tell people, stay grounded. And as long as you are in the moment today, for today, you'll worry about tomorrow when it comes. Because as fast as things are changing at this point for a lot of people, I'm like, I want you to have long-term goals, but you have like a loose thread with it, because in a month you might grow and decide that you are no longer interested in what you just were. So take it easy on yourself. As far as it being a powerful time, manifesting is what's super important. So I will tell everybody, be super, super mindful of any kind of negative thought that you might have, because when we doubt ourselves, it's almost as if we have a I'm going to do it attitude, and then we circle back and we doubt ourselves. That's how you cut yourself off at the knees when it comes to trying to actually manifest. So when you right off the bat doubt yourself, you don't have a cheerleader on the inside that comes back around and is like, oh, yes, you can. And so when you don't doubt it, it's like you send that energy out into motion. And then when it comes back, it's like concrete. So as far as being manifesting, powerful time, I'm telling everybody, put out what you want, ask for more, fine tune what you want. As things change, continue to put it out because everybody's growing. And as you grow, things are obviously going to go change with it. So rolling on here. Best stone for emotional trauma. So I'm going to go about this a couple different ways, just because trauma can literally be various places in the body. So um, if someone is strictly dealing with the emotional component, that's going to be the heart chakra. So pink stones, green stones. If you are the person who um, you can kind of gravitate towards things based on how you feel, or you're going to follow your curiosity, I wouldn't even be inclined to tell you which one to go for because in a handful of pink varieties or a handful of green, I might pinpoint one, but you might gravitate towards another. And we are always, as animals, going to instinctively gravitate towards whatever is going to actually give us that sense of balance. So if it's the emotional component, pinks, greens, if there's a lot of anxiety or grief or depression, that's all with the root chakra. And so my favorite for that is actually black onyx. I think black onyx is great for stabilizing kind of the emotions of grief. And then if you pair that with one of the pink or greens, it's kind of like you'll be a little bit more in the moment, be aware of your emotions and not let them totally overcome you to where you're stuck in this cyclone effect. If you were going to talk about sexual trauma, then I'm going to go back to some of the ones that I actually recommended earlier. The banded carnelian is one that really helps bring back harmony back to the sacral. And so anytime somebody is violated in that way, it doesn't matter the severity. If it's the event, the emotion, the case, the injury is going to, in my opinion, going to stay the same in the body. So that banded carnelian, trying to think like what other examples. I don't know if anybody has specifics, but feel free to ask. Let's see. My mom was diagnosed with ALS, neuromuscular. What's a good crystal for her? A lot of ancient shaman, ancient healers, tree agate. So anytime anything in the body resembles tree branches, so the muscular system, the skeletal system, the blood vessels, the nervous system, everything is kind of, if you look at it on maps, all these lines kind of resemble tree roots. And so that's one that I usually, it's kind of like my default go-to. However, I picture both bloodstone and hematite right now. I'm not sure if that would be more of a specific case. There's another one. I would say there's a type of like argonite, but I'd have to double check on that. Feel free to message me on Facebook and see. I actually have to look into that one for you because that's not one that I have actually experienced myself with. So work with me on that one and then we will learn together. Brian, where do you feel a soul connection to another human? So that is a interesting question. So in my interpretation from what you're asking, I would imagine that's going to be in the heart because that's where the feelings are going to come from. That's where you're going to kind of feel kind of connected. However, it might get confusing for people because the mind, that's where everything processes. And so if instinct, intuition telling you everything's going this way, I could see that. But I would have to say the heart. Now, when you mentioned soul connections, there are so many different types of soul connections. Now, when I look at what I would view as like my soul family, they're the people who they're still in my life. They're people who came into my life that taught me very valuable lessons and are no longer in my life. It's like I feel like all of this stuff kind of moves through in unison. So soulmates, for example. Soulmates can be best friends. They can be romantic relationships. They can be coworkers. There's all kinds of soul connections there. There's karmic relationships, karmic connections where people feel these deep, intimate feelings. However, they're learning these painful lessons, kind of clearing karmic stuff from the past. There's just various bonds, basically, when you look at how people connect spiritually. So I hope that kind of answered your question. Carol, does it matter which wrist you wear a bracelet on? I'm going to tell you absolutely not. I am one of those people. If you tell me to put this on this arm because this is wrong, I'm going to look at you and tell you to go F yourself, because at that point, I would feel like that's your ego trying to decipher what's wrong or what's right for me. Now, people who are ambidextrous, who use both hands, for example, I can't sit there and tell them which hand is their giving hand, which is their receiving hand. Well, whatever floats your boat, pal. Like which feels better to you. Like, hand me something. It gets very dicey when yes, we are kind of cookie cutter. However, we're also very unique individual beings, and on a spiritual plane, we come from all these different places, and so there's no way that we could all be totally alike. And so some days I wear a left, some days I go for right, some days I have both. Anytime somebody has tried to argue that or tried to tell me, maybe it's my own ego, maybe I'm stubborn, but I kind of just stop listening, because I am the type of person that if I'm going to work with you in a session, if I'm going to do a psychic reading, or you're going to work with me for life coaching, I am always going to encourage you to do whatever it is that feels absolutely most right for you, because if you don't, you're not going to be happy. And so if you want to put the bracelets on your left ankle, I don't care. Like, as long as they're on the physical body, or in the auric field, that's where it matters for me. So you're going to get the benefits from them basically being in your bubble. So anybody who's out there telling you which is right, which is wrong, you just do what you want and be happy. That's my advice to everybody there. Jennifer, what is a crystal for new beginnings and self-care? So I'm going to talk about new beginnings first. My personal favorite is ruby tourmaline. When I wrote my system to do my crystal readings, for me, it represents literally that new beginnings, that life change, that push right off of the bat. And it's one of those where when people are in this point for new beginnings, they will literally start a new relationship, a new job, a new life path, more of a life purpose all at once. But it's kind of like this cleansing effect where you literally keep getting rid of all the old stuff as you then grow into what you're supposed to be. So when it comes to the new beginnings, I would almost have to ask you, outside of my suggestion, if you were to continue to work in medical, for example, I would tell you to go for something that's related more to the heart chakra. If you wanted to go into music and you were going to sing, I would tell you to hit up the throat. If you were wanting to very much be a intuitive designer, then hell, go work with your third eye. But when it comes to new beginnings, I made a candle this year, and so I believe I put orange calcite for the element of like the creativity. I used apatite because it is kind of like the throat with expression, and then I don't remember what else was in. I think maybe rose quartz. But when it comes to those kind of new beginnings, this is honestly where I will tell people to use your feelers, gravitate towards what you want, set your own intention, because it's no different. Yes, there's a lot of people who wrote like the Crystal Bible and all of these books on how the crystals do resonate with the physical body, but something such as new beginnings, that's outside of you. And so if in order to start new beginnings outside of you, it's going to be a follow effect from changing something internally. And so you would really have to know how to trust yourself to gravitate towards, what chakra, for example, you need to heal in order to move forward. But that's kind of a loaded question where I would really have to pick your brain and ask a lot more like individual questions. Now, when it comes to your question on self-care, um, rose quartz, that's all about self-love. And so people who, if somebody sat down for a reading, for example, and they didn't even bother to brush their teeth or brush their hair or change clothes or put on clothes. Hell, we're on a webinar. It's kind of like self-love. And so if you're not even loving yourself, you are not even going to take care of yourself. You're not going to nurture yourself. And so I would recommend starting with something for the heart. For that case, for me, self-love is rose quartz. When it comes to nurturing yourself, sunstone is my favorite there. It's a type of feldspar. There's also, I just got a visual, Jennifer, for you. There's sunset sodalite, which is literally a mix of, it's orange and blue. There's pieces of the sunstone in the blue sodalite, which helps the throat chakra, and then, which I know is something that I've worked with you on before, and then the sunstone for nurturing. And so it's kind of like that double whammy. So that would be a fun one I would advise you to check out. So Kelly, is karma real? I have a friend doing some crappy things to his family, trying to support him, but it's hard. Will this come back on him? So it's an interesting question. So do I believe in karma? You bet your sweet ass I do. However, I don't always believe that it comes back on you in this life. People who lie, steal, and cheat, well, they do it their whole life. However, I'm convinced that when they incarnate and come back the next round, they're going to be the ones that just thrive from honesty, and every person that they interact with is basically clearing their karmic debt by lying to them, stealing from them, cheating on them. Which these on a soul level, it won't make sense until you kind of go back home. But on the human level, it's like, what the hell are we suffering for? Where a lot of times I think people are literally paying due. I mean, if there's so many hypothetical examples I can give you. However, I have learned there are philosophies where if you really, really learn to live with intention, you can escape karma by not accidentally running a stop sign and causing an accident and then having like a chain reaction fallout after that. As far as your friend, if this individual is doing crappy things, they're probably going to justify their toxic behavior. This is one where you can support them and love them from a distance, however, and not judge them. It's being compassionate. However, depending on what they're doing, I can't say that it wouldn't come back, because 9 times out of 10, I am quite certain that things come back much quicker than people realize. But it's not always in the same way. And so the more that I've learned about energy, what you put out there comes back. That's why earlier I'm like, don't even have a negative thought. Like, no, no, no. If you have an ill thought about somebody else, that thought can affect the other person. It's no different than you see these news articles pop up where students are yelling at water and then they're watering a plant with it, and then the plant that had the water that got yelled at starts to grow differently or not as happy, and then the one that they water with the happy loving water starts to grow faster and it has bigger leaves, a brighter green foliage, and it's energy and tension everywhere. So I would also advise you to probably protect your energy so that you don't get sucked up into this, because anything negative, in my opinion, is just not worth messing with, because it does come back on you. Well, hello, Diane. What questions help with dementia? So, dementia. Oh, there's a purple and black one. Charolite. It's not one that I actually have. That's one that I can picture. Anything with the crown chakra there, honestly. And for whatever reason, I'm also getting like a message to include the element of grounding, because people that are either um, people that have dementia, or there's another, I'm drawing a blank, where they kind of start to space out later in life. I have actually been in a reading and I connected with this individual. And I knew that it was this woman's dad. I remember describing what he did for a living, what he did in his youth, the farm that he and his family grew up on, to only find out that this individual was still alive. And he was almost like in a coma, but it was, I don't remember what, I'm sorry, I'm drawing blanks on like the verbiage there, but yeah, Alzheimer's. Thank you, Jana. So it was fascinating for me because afterwards it was almost like ethically, I didn't even know how I felt about it, because knowing that this person was still alive and I answered these questions under the impression that they had already crossed over, it was for me like they literally had 1 foot here, 1 foot there. And so they typically are very reactive emotionally. And so that's why I would recommend the grounding element to kind of help keep them grounded more here than up here. Um, you do anything too much to balance the crown chakra, you might only amplify more of the spiritual experiences that they're having, and then not actually um, have them be as present as you would wish. But that's a good question, because I haven't actually gotten to work with someone either on that. So message me later, and then I will dive into this one too, and we will get to learn together. Robin, are there any crystal bracelets that should not be worn together? So honestly, I'm going to tell you, I hate the same question as I do about what's right, what's wrong. There are ones that um, you don't want to get wet. For example, like selenite. If you have a selenite beaded bracelet, you don't want it to get wet. Um, but if you, just because I don't like something, there's no way that I could sit and tell you what's right or wrong for you. And if your favorite two to wear together or my least favorite, like don't let me sit and tell you what's right or wrong. People get concerned as far as energetically if something is going to be too much. As long as you're setting the intention, like, okay, I'm going to wear this for, this is my intention, this is why I want to wear it, this is why I'm cleansing it, this is why I'm charging it. Um, you get to have a little bit of leeway. If I told you I wore this, but you all of a sudden be like, oh no, I want this to like be for my heart chakra. Well, then you set that intention, and then that's going to be kind of something that's right for you. And so people that are concerned about um, there's a lot of manipulation out there, and honestly it drives me absolutely insane, because if somebody, imagine if I could make you afraid of putting the wrong two stones in your pocket, then you would really want to believe everything else that I have to say, because I'm gaining your trust by planting fear. And it's these stupid things about wearing something on the wrong bracelet or in the wrong pocket, or having the two that shouldn't be together. I'm like, no, no, this isn't like you're not going to have acid burn. Um, if people have, for example, if you get overwhelmed, then you don't want to have a whole bunch of bracelets that would then overwhelm your energy, for example. But if you're having anxiety and you want to wear 25 different types of grounding bracelets, power to you. I always encourage everybody to do what's right for them, because um, kind of earlier on in my spiritual journey, I hopped on shamanism, and it seemed like in this time in my life, everywhere where I was kind of getting roadblocks, shamanism opened up all of these um, doors, because it enabled me to really create my own relationship with spirit, and set the stage for what things mean to me. And because of that, it's deeply personal to me. And so if people are having their own relationship with crystals or spirits that's personal to them, I will only encourage that. Um, but I will move on here. Best crystals for stress, and then any book for spiritual healing. So crystals for stress. If you, anybody who has anxiety is going to be stressed. That's the root chakra. They're not grounded. Um, anybody who's worry, they're not grounded. When it comes to, I would almost want to dive in more to like specific types of stress. This is just going to be completely like a blanket statement for everyone. If you were in a relationship and your relationship is causing you stress, there's pink opal, for example, is to kind of help promote forgiveness and harmony with the heart chakra. And so that would be one element. If you are working with animals, if you're a vet and you're working with animals, there's a few different crystals that are better for that direction. Each is a little bit different. I don't know what other examples I could give other than stress, relationships, work stress. So, what do you, if you don't mind me asking, what do you do for work? Because if you are the empath and you're a nurse, then I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, heart chakra all the way. Especially to keep my work kind of grounded and not empathize with the patients, because people that are a nurse and are empathizing with the patients who aren't doing well, they're only going to get more and more stressed because they feel what the patient is. Then their own emotions go up, their own anxieties kick up. Financial industry. So, that one is honestly, I'm going to say grounding, because everything there has to go from the ground up. And as things are kind of shifting, there's a lot of concern, there's a lot of pressure. For me, with the physical body, anytime there is financial stress, it always shows up for me in the lower back, right above, kind of like right above the base of the spine. And so I would think anything between the red to orange range, if you're looking for crystals to help you at work, I would probably go that direction. Now, let's see. How to rid strong connections that are toxic. So, Crystal, good question. I'm going to go about this in a few different ways. Let me start by families. People that have a relatively toxic family. Boundaries, first of all. You have to set the boundary for what you need. Boundaries are typically going to upset the people who are either gaining from you not having them, or benefiting from you kind of being a pushover. And so if you're really wanting to rid yourself of toxic relationships, toxic boundary, toxic family, toxic relationships, even coworkers, friends, boundaries are everything. Start calling them out on the things that bother you. But the most important advice I could give you is make everything about you. Well, it hurts me when you said this. You can't go about it in a way of saying, well, you and you and you. The more that you can make it about you, and express what you need, the respect that you need. And it's kind of like, I'm like avoiding talking about personal stories here. When it comes to setting boundaries, you have to know what's right for you, and not be afraid to put your foot down. And so if you do not want somebody to set foot in your home because they continue to call you a fat slob, and you tell them, and this is purely hypothetical, guys, and you tell them, look, when you tell me this is how I feel. And if you're going to step foot in my home, that's not acceptable. And if you do that, I'm going to ask you to leave, and I'm not going to allow you to come back. Set the boundary. And then if they challenge you, then obviously that's only confirming why you need the boundary. As far as reading strong connections, it's like, I will then go about this on an energetic, like an etherical chord, where people that we interact with, people that we have romantic connections with, sexual relationships, it's like people that we bond at the heart. I used to be, I'm a very affectionate, loving person. However, I don't want to go around touching, hugging everybody, because when things go heart to heart, people that want to take literally can attach these like cords to where you don't even realize that they're there. But then you start to like feeling sorry for this individual, and then they can say things and they just kind of pull. It's like they can manipulate your energy because of this. And to cut those types of connections, I would totally recommend, there's a local Reiki master that I would go to. I've seen a few different times for myself. I have a friend that goes, wonderful results. There's not a lot of people that I would recommend allowing to interact with your energy without you knowing what they're going to do. And so when it comes to, you could do like a salt bath. That's one thing that I like to kind of charge, but selenite, if you've got like a piece of selenite, you can literally go around the auric field, trying to continue to cut those, setting the intention that the salt water will cut any kind of bind that you had that's coming from another individual. But when I had somebody tap into my energy recently, they literally said I had over 3,000 connections. And I'm like, holy shit. No wonder, like everything starts making sense down the road, but you don't realize. And so if people are in your actual reality, let me tell you, boundaries. And honestly, if it makes them mad, it's not your problem. If you want to speak your truth and set a boundary of something that you need, and they want to get pissed and walk away or go pout, let them be mad. Absolutely. Your job is to basically be happy. We don't come here to be stressed. We don't come here to please narcissistic people who only want to seek to destroy. I mean, your life is worth living, and toxic relationships, whether they be at work, relationships, friendships, home, family, they're draining. And so self-preservation, self-love, boundaries, totally go for the boundaries there. I got long-winded on that one, but boundaries. Sarah, let's see. Do our loved ones that have crossed over ever communicate with us forever, or how do they move on to? So this is one, let me take a drink of water here. I might even have difficulty trying to articulate this one because it's something that I have seen, and I find it fascinating, but it's like, if you look at numerology, we have a relatively short cycle where everything repeats. And if you look at, picture this is us, and then we've had everything's just kind of going like this, repeating. It's like a spirit, a person can go on, and then their energy be recycled without their spirit necessarily reincarnating as a different entity, if that makes sense. But what I picture, Sarah, if you came to me and I was able to connect with, let's just say 5 of your grandparents and your great grandparents, and I don't know who else you might have lost, but I'm understanding my own work now to be slightly different, because the way that we are all connected, we stay connected. It's almost like if you look at how everything underground, the roots is all connected by mycelium, the fungus of the forest. And so everything's connected underground. We are just as connected above ground. And so it's kind of like the web of life, where you realize you are in the right place at the right time and think, how did this happen? Whether it be the synchronistic numbers or you get the sign from spirit. The way that I see us literally being all tied together, even if your grandparents and great grandparents have passed away, you still have that connection, that tether to them. And so even if their energy is gone and comes back, and they are now something completely different on an energetic scale, your connection to them is what I guess how we're able to still connect or still communicate. And the more that I've been able to get to know myself inside and out is honestly where I've been able to recognize the experiences doing mediumship that I get is literally from knowing myself and honoring you. And then it literally ties to it's almost like picture everything unfolds behind you. I guess this is my own mind's way of trying to explain things in a different perspective, but I've been relatively fascinated by the idea. And so I don't, because I used to be really bothered by, well, if people reincarnate, you're going to tell me, like, if they come back in a few years, like, I'm never going to get a sign for my grandma again? Like, come on, her homemade bread was bomb. Like, I would really like to smell that once in a while. And I still think because of those connections is how they can still send through. But it's interesting how, um, as we grow, you're supposed to self-reflect and think about what you've been taught, thinking about what you've been told, and then think about how it reflects with you and what your truth is. And um, I don't know, it's been really kind of interesting there, but hopefully that answers your question, Sarah. If not, feel free to elaborate more. Don, how do you know when you have a spiritual or soul connection with someone, and what are kindred spirits? So it's kindred spirits, people that are obviously very connected, people that have been in past lives, for example. You might meet them and kind of have this weird, odd connection, not really know why. Or you meet someone and it's like you're able to finish one another's sentences without actually um, knowing what you guys were actually talking about. Or um, when it comes to, I got to go back to your question here because I lost my spot. Um, how do you know when you have a spiritual soul connection? So the way you're wording that is if you were the empath, it's something that you would feel. It would totally be from the heart chakra. Dawn, the way you word it, how do you know? It's kind of like you would have to trust your intuition. And so if something's telling you you are tied to this person, you're tied to this person and you know it, you don't have to have a justifiable emotion or feeling behind it. You just know. Where people get confused is labels. You might meet somebody and think, oh my God, this person's absolutely amazing. I'm in love. Well, but it could also be a friend. It could be a future partner, a future best friend, a future coworker. Like when you connect on a soul level, a lot of times people only look at it as this like romantic kind of connection. However, people that connect at a soul level, those usually connections are very deep because they're based on depth. They're not shallow, external. They're very internal, if that makes sense. Um, Jennifer, can an individual cut their own cords, particularly draining cords? You betcha. So, using like the selenite, for example, is one thing that you can do. You can pray. I mean, ask God, white light, Holy Spirit, to remove any of these binds that might have. Not to mention, if you are consciously trying to get rid of one of these cords, and you know that it's still there, then I would ask you to ask yourself why you still allow it to be there. Because um, if you have to once a week pray that this get removed, well, if this person is kind of a thing of the past and they're just haunting your memory, then you have to think, why do I have to allow this? What do I have to process to actually let go? Um, you could also try like the salt bath. Uh, Brian's comment, regular table salt, sure works. The only thing I wouldn't use is the Epsom salt or use a mix of, because that's just not really salt. You can use Himalayan salt, pink salt, table salt, rock salt, whatever floats your boat. Jackie, I live in an apartment. Can I ground by being on the balcony barefoot or only in the grass? So let me ask you, Jackie, what floor are you on? Because um, a few years ago, I moved and I went from literally working in a basement to living on the third floor in an apartment. And I was literally waking up hearing voices thinking, like, oh my God, like I didn't realize that being off the ground literally had me like tapped in as I was waking up. And so there's going to be a lot of things that you can do. For me, just being outside is grounding. You don't have to have your feet in the actual grass. However, if you really want to get into like the electronic flow or the current, you're better off. Honestly, what I would do, get a bucket or an oversized like planter or a really deep like saucer and put a bag of dirt in there and just put your feet in that while you're sitting outside. I've known people who would do that in a basement in the middle of winter just to kind of still get that connection, that dirt. Concrete still kind of works if you're barefoot. And so there's a lot of different kind of grounding techniques. If you are in an apartment, I honestly, I love houseplants. So I have like almost 50 around my place where, um, for me, bringing elements of outdoors in is what is very grounding. I don't know if it is feng shui, but like ancient Chinese culture, when they would build a house, they would have an entire wall that was windows because of the way that they knew that their spirit needed to feel connected to outside. And as our cities have gotten bigger and thicker and more dense and more brick and taller, we are getting further and further and further away from nature. And so I applaud everybody to bring elements of earth indoors, literally crystals, house plants, anything from outside, aquariums, running water, fountains, any kind of element from earth is going to not only raise your vibrations indoors, but it will raise your vibe as kind of like a fallout effect. But we are animals, we are nature, we're meant to exist in nature, not really in these enclosed walls. And so a lot of people, they benefit from introducing themselves or bringing those elements from outside into their home. So even if you can't get your feet on the physical ground and you're still looking for grounding, you can fiddle with the house plant. I love them. Let's see, Karen. I've been having ear pressure in one ear that won't go away, and I've been seeing 1111 all the time with crazy dreams that end up really happening down the line. Do you know the meaning of any of this? So we're going to start with the ear pressure. Ears are going to be tied to the throat chakra. If it's both ears at once, anytime there is an energetic shift, it's like this time of year. I had a headache this morning, and I'm like, what the heck? Why? I'm very aware of like my dietary triggers. I don't eat them. The barometric pressure, when that really changes, I will feel it, usually in my sinuses, and so that's one way I get hit. The ear pressure could be similar. What I would encourage you to do is kind of log days that you have both, days that you have one, days that you have the other, and see if there's any kind of corresponding or anything that's in common, because process of elimination will be your best friend there. Seeing 1111 is, it's kind of like a wink from the universe, or like a, hey, congratulations, you're going through a spiritual awakening. I remember when this happened for me, I didn't have a clue anything about any of this. And I remember I would continue to wake up, and I would look over and my clock would say 11:11. And at the time I was working with a therapist, and I remember talking to her, and it was like, it was so mind blowing to me, because I'm like, why? What does this mean? And ones for me are all about new beginnings. The 1111 is just a very spiritual number indicating that you're going through your awakening. And so when you see this, do yourself a favor and try to go back maybe 5 or 10 seconds, because anytime I get a number sign, I go back and think, what was the last thought through my mind? Because and a lot of times people don't even realize how unaware they are. But let's say next time you see 1111 and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. This new job, I don't know what to do. And then you see 1111 and it's like this getting a wink from the universe. It's like, okay, maybe I don't need to wonder or worry about what to do. I just need to kind of have faith. But when you see it, I always recommend acknowledge it and say thank you, because once spirit realizes, aha, they're with me, they see this, then it takes energy to send you messages. And so if they will send more messages that you will recognize, and send, they won't be wasting as much energy, basically sending you the little trinkets of stuff that you don't pay attention to. And so that's why once you know how to communicate with your guides, it's like, oh wow, you can get signs nonstop, because as soon as they know what you are going to get to notice, then there's a lot less failed attempts. And what people forget is working with spirit, we're kind of all together, but they don't control us. We get to go to them. And so that's where, when you're seeing 1111, you do get to say, okay, I want this to be positive, and I keep thinking about work. I want it to mean this. They don't get, spirit might show you signs, but they don't get to dictate your reality. That's where your free will comes in. Now, as far as the dreams, premonition, intuition, those are ones that, if you do have it, especially if they're negative, but chances are the dreams that you're having are probably like stuff that doesn't even seem relevant. If there's something that you dream that scares you, I would then tell you to immediately, like the next morning, acknowledge that it was a dream, acknowledge that that wasn't a real life premonition, because what I would fear to happen is accidentally manifesting, because this thought believed so much of what happened, it went out and then it actually came back. However, these premonitions, if they're happening for your best interest, I was in a 10-year relationship, and about 3 months before I left, or the end of this relationship, I started seeing my house plants in different windows, and it would come to me in this like dream state. And I remember thinking, like, this is so weird. Why am I dreaming of my house plants being somewhere else? Like, what's happening? And then when I ended up moving into this apartment, I saw the same windows that I had been seeing in my dreams, and it was like, oh my gosh, how did I not know? But that's where dreams can be really tricky to try to interpret. But as far as 1111, just acknowledge it, say thank you, and then move on. All right, let's see. Courtney, any stones for helping children learning to speak? Blue. Anything with the throat chakra. So sodalite, which is one I probably should have on. Anytime somebody's going to be doing public speaking, talking, a lot of talking, I would tell them to totally go for having sodalite. When I am doing usually a lot of work, I'll have like the blue kyanite that I talked about earlier. What's another one? Blue light agate. A lot of kids love that. Let's see. A couple minutes left here. Dawn, working with animals is my purpose in life. Will I be working with animals when I move to Arizona? You would have to get yourself to Arizona first. If you, Dawn, continue to hit the roadblock, then I don't even know how to word this. You might be tunnel vision, looking at the wrong opportunity. There are so many different ways of working with animals. And so if you know in your freaking heart, my purpose is to work with animals, don't rule out certain things. I know somebody who managed to successfully, she started like a dog walking business. And then I think she had a very well-paying full-time job that she's had for years, that after her hard work and dedication, she grew. She turned this full-time job into a part-time job, to where just recently she was able to go full-time with it. And she just got recognition in her city for being voted one of the best in the town. So I think that is totally awesome. So if you know your purpose, follow the passion, but don't get tunnel vision on the how. Just keep putting out there, show me how, show me how, show me how. You will get there. Sarah, I was hoping that I will continue to receive signs from loved ones forever. It warms my heart and helps to remember no. You will always see signs, and especially the more that you get comfortable knowing what to look for, the more that you understand. It's amazing to me. I get signs every day of my life. whether it be from my guides or from people in my own life who have passed away or crossed over. And so, even today, I literally dropped my draw while I was driving. And so it's like I think working with spirit, I have set the intention from day one to always be just as wowed with uh, what that connection is like, because it is truly amazing. Um, Megan, I'm expanding my my angel knowledge. Do you have a book recommendation? Um, I actually don't. The author of the Angel and Archangel books that I have has actually went back on all of her work, and so I can't even acknowledge that one. You're very intuitive, so I would see what is actually out there, what you're drawn to. The archangels specifically have been ones, if you can find learning on how to work with them, calling on them. I've had a few very interesting stories where um, I remember about 4 years ago, I had a motorcycle, and no, it was about 5 years ago, and I was just starting to learn about archangels at the time. And I remember getting on my bike and thinking, all right, if these archangels are real, like, all right, Michael, I'm going to have you protect me for one, but not only am I going to ask for your protection, I'm going to want you to give me a sign. And I remember just thinking, like, doo doo, what's it going to be? And I went to see a friend of mine who was working at a garden center, and I love plants. And I remember looking across the parking lot, and I'm like, what is that plant over there? Like, I literally just like stopped talking, had to go check this plant out, and I pulled the tag out, and the name of the color was called Archangel. And I was like baffled, because for me to be, it was such a new concept, but to ask for the sign and then to get it within minutes, I was like, oh my goodness. So that's kind of cool. Anything that you can do with archangels is pretty sweet. Donna, potty training, carnelian, patience, grounding, also something communication, because kids they need to know how to communicate. But since I don't have kids, I have no advice on how to help you with potty training. Last question here, Miss Mary. Energy level is depleted. Crystals to help. Please, all I want to do is sleep. So what I'm getting here is that your energy is done. All you want to do is sleep. So you actually are able to sleep. So you have to honor yourself. People like us are very high energy. Go, 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 go. We don't like to slow down. And when we burn a candle from both ends, it gets shorter and shorter and shorter. But we don't think that we have less energy. We still go with this amount of energy. And then what happens is we crash, we burn. And you could be getting the same kind of cleansing sweep. And so if you've got a lot of stuff from your past that's like bubbling up, which could be emotionally draining you, that's one thing. If it's on a physical level, as long as you are eating and taking care of yourself nutritionally, I wouldn't worry about the physical body. I would say here, if you're looking for crystals, um, set and find your crystal that you want to meditate with. And then if you want to do a closed-eyed meditation, literally ask for it to show you what you need to regain your energy. Because one tip that I will tell you is ask yourself person, place, or thing. When you realize that your energy is depleted, realizing person, place, or thing, is my energy going here? Is it going here? Is it going here? And then to see where you just acknowledge that your sister passed. This would have to be, not to mention, this isn't, you've also, just from working with you, I know that you've had recent grief as well. And so what people don't realize is grief, we might lose someone. It's a very quick moment. And then usually there's a surface and this chapter just goes in slang in the past. That shit creeps up on us down the road. It hits us when we least expect it. And so if anybody feels tired, sit down, sit your butt down and just take a break, take a nap. You have to honor how you feel. And so the second that you don't, you are only going to get more and more drained. Um, this is one where you really just got to take care of yourself, keep it grounded. Totally send my condolences to you because loss is tough. But like I said earlier, the people that I'm working with are experiencing close loss, and it's like everything's up in their face all at once. So, people that are going through a lot of hard times, people that are going through loss of relationships, loss of life, hang in there because I really believe when things feel very compiled and everything's happening all at once, it's a sense of purging. It's not that you're being punished, it's like you are literally purging. And as this energy is getting cleared, that's why I'm so adamant now on set your intentions. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Because if you're energetically full and all of a sudden you put yourself in a place of allowance to receive, you don't want to just get what's available. You want to get exactly what you're asking for. So I'm going to wrap this up, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. It's probably been like 4 or 5 months since I've done one of these, and I've got the next few scheduled. My goal here is to do the second Wednesday of each month. That way I can have a routine. That way I can hop on. And so if you guys come up with questions from now until next month, by all means, write them down and then circle back. I enjoy getting to do this, and so I hope that you guys at least learned something. I appreciate those of you that stayed with me. Until next time, thanks again, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your evening. Take care. Bye-bye.